Ruslan.
I wanted to talk about this story that is really sad in so many different ways that I'm just completely disappointed with. I don't even know how to jump into this, but Lil Wayne, all in the last week, has pled guilty to federal gun charges, gotten sued by his ex-manager, and sold his masters to Universal. Okay. Any artist selling their masters, you're giving up your control. You're giving up something that's extremely powerful. It is an asset, even for him. So to sell them for $100 million, that may sound like a quick come up, but his masters over the course of his life and beyond his life could be worth billions potentially. I don't know, right? But if Universal gave him $100 million, that means that it's probably worth more than that to them, right? So he sells his masters. He gets sued by his managers, and he pleads guilty to federal gun charges. Now, you guys don't know, Lil Wayne has been in jail before on catching a gun case in New York, and here are just some of the headlines. They're all over. Lil Wayne pleads guilty to federal gun charges. Lil Wayne pleads guilty to federal gun charges. He could face up to 10 years in prison. He's getting sued by his former manager for more than $20 million. He sold his masters for $100 million. This is all over the media. This is all within the same week. Now, why did I want to talk about the Lil Wayne situation? Well, because listen, in the last video we did with regards to Boom coming to faith, these situations influence each other. They connect, and this is what I mean. I told you guys, I say this all the time. Wisdom is proven right by her children. Wisdom is proven right by her children. I don't have any type of fervent need to try to convince people of the ways of God, or to even necessarily like be the guy to give some kind of defense for the faith. I think that's healthy, and I think we should know those things. But I think wisdom is proven right by children. That when you walk in a life where you're walking with Jesus, overall, it's going to work out for you. You may not be rich and famous. You may not have every material possession you want, but overall, it's going to work out better in your self-interest because now you're under the Father's covering, and that's a beautiful thing. And so Wayne, who's extremely talented, been an artist for a very long time, been successful for a very long time, just won like a $50 million lawsuit against Birdman. It just appears to just have squandered the entire situation away. Like, he's gonna lose his freedom, he's potentially gonna lose money, and he doesn't own his masters anymore, which, yes, he gets a $100 million payout. But at that rate, I mean, the pace that he's living, the amount of people he's supporting, it's not going to last very long. Now, why am I sharing this story? Well, when I saw the story of the news breaking that his managers wanted $20 million, they were suing him from, by the way, this is now happening with Chance. Remember, Chance's ex-manager just sued him for $3 million. I remembered Wayne's manager, and Wayne's manager was a dude named Cortez Bryant. And Cortez Bryant, I had met at South by Southwest. South by Southwest is a big music festival in Austin, Texas. This is the year 2012, 2013. I don't remember what year it was, but I was at South by Southwest. I recognized Cortez Bryant because I was watching the Carter documentary. There was a leaked documentary that they did not want coming out called The Carter, and it was about Lil Wayne, and they scrapped it, or they tried to scrap it, and somehow the documentary came out, and there was a leaked version, and I watched it, and I remember a scene in this documentary where Cortez Bryant, who was Wayne's manager and DJ at the time, basically more or less confronted him about his wild drug use and just his debaucherous behavior. And it created tension between them to the point where Cortez had to ride on his own tour bus outside of the entire entourage because him and Wayne had so much friction on tour because he was the only person in Lil Wayne's life to confront him on this stuff. Right, to confront him on this stuff. And so I see Tez at South by Southwest. I come up to him, we start chopping it up, and I was like, bro, I just want to commend you, like kudos to you for standing up. And in the documentary, he said something about faith or God, and we started talking about God and faith, and he was like, yeah, bro, like, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. And I was like, Tez, you're a believer? Like, how does that work with you like managing Lil Wayne, right? Like, how does that work? And he told me this, and I reached out to him recently just to tap in with him, and he told me this, and he said, man, if I wasn't in Wayne's life, he would have been dead. And I was like, whoa, like, that's some heavy stuff that, to think about that. And he's like, listen, man, this music industry is hard, but I really believe that God put me here to protect this dude from himself in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of wild stuff that goes on, but this is what I know. This is what I've been a part of. I'm trying to reconcile all this stuff. And hey, listen, if it wasn't for me, Wayne would have been dead. I was like, man, that's crazy. And then he gave me a lot of game. Tez sat there. This is like right as Drake was really starting to blow, right? Drake had already had a couple records out. And he gave me a bunch of game and how they blew Drake up and how they used their own money and like a lot of really interesting things. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, this is crazy that there's so many believers in the industry that I'm meeting. It's the same weekend, the first time I had met Kendrick, and me and Kendrick are busting it up about the Lord. You meet Tez, and it's just debauchery. Like South by Southwest is wild, right? Like it's a wild. And you got these guys self-identifying as Christians who are in these really, 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 I don't know how else to say it, dark occupations, right? Like, I don't know. But this is like Lil Wayne's day one. So as I'm researching this situation, I realized that Wayne fired Tez a year ago. He fired Tez a year ago, right? Because he felt like whatever situation wasn't being handled right with the baby situation. And Tez did a really fire podcast, I think with Rap Radar, where they went over all the details of the Birdman Lil Wayne situation before the lawsuit was finalized. If you guys want to look it up, I think it was a Rap Radar podcast with Tez. Tez is brilliant, by the way, from a marketing standpoint. I mean, he really like took Lil Wayne to the next level. As you guys know, Lil Wayne does none of his own business, right? But Tez really like took him to the next level. He's the one that helped discover Drake and helped sign Drake and made sure that Drake got a good deal. He told me I don't know if this is true, but he told me that Drake had a 25-75% split with Universal Cash Money. 25-75% split because they used their own money. He said, we scraped together our own money. We got the single popping at radio. And because we got the single popping at radio, then when we always knew we were going to sign with Cash Money, Young Money. But once we got the single popping, we had the leverage to get whatever kind of deal we wanted. And he said they got a 75-25% split in Drake's direction, which I was like, goodness. So I say all this to say, Tez is a good dude. Right? I don't know if I could ever be in a position to stand next or behind a Lil Wayne and DJ all of his shows. But Tez was a good dude, right? And if you know anything about Cortez Bryant, you easily find out that like he seems like a solid individual, regardless on, how you view these things in terms of him, managing a Lil Wayne. And then to find out that he was fired a year ago, and then these other guys stepped in that were kind of like the day-to-day assistants, more or less, I think. I'm not 100% sure. And those are the actual two managers that are suing Wayne for $20 million. It's not even Tez, who's been there with him since day one, because Tez was let go a year ago. Wild situation. But it just goes to show, man. It just goes to show that, listen, a certain degree of fame, a certain degree of notoriety, and you aren't functioning in your right mind. You have every drug accessible to you. You have every woman accessible to you. And you're going to end up a lot of times in one of two places. You're going to end up in jail like Lil Wayne, or you're going to end up really badly hurt in the hospital and in jail like Boonk. And very few rap, and those are just the rappers we know about. Like, think about all the other folks that never made it, right? Think about all the folks that like completely lost everything or like went to jail, got killed. I mean, it's a bunch of rappers that got killed this year. You know what I'm saying? That like many of us never heard of yet. Very few pivot and become the Jay-Z's, right? And the moguls that they just become the Dr. Dre's, right? Very few. The majority of this stuff it's sad. It's really sad. And by the way, Lil Wayne going to jail could potentially save his life, because he's still an addict. Like, he's still, doing some drugs. Clearly, he's not in his right state of mind. to all, like, why? What are you doing with a gun? Like, what are you doing with a gun, bro? Why do you have a gun, right? Why do you have a gun? So it's a bummer, but Romans tells us, man, for the wages of sin is death. You know, and I'm not wishing death on anybody. I pray that that Wayne specifically finds the Lord. And when Wayne was in jail last time, I wrote him letters. His address was public, and I wrote him letters and like preaching the gospel to him through letters. I know that sounds cheesy, but like, yo, this, you know, I was like, hey man, he's probably sitting here bored, right? Maybe he'll read my letter, you know, and just telling him about God, telling him about Jesus. This is before I knew Cortez was a Christian and any of that stuff. So it's a super sad situation, man. It's a bummer, and it just goes to show that, listen, everything that glistens isn't gold. Everything that you think is cool in the music industry is not popping, and you don't really want that life. You don't really want that life. You think you want that life, but you don't really want that life. And you think you want to be famous, but you don't really want to be famous. You think you want to be that rich, but you don't really want to be that rich. $100 million ain't a lot of money when your overhead is through the roof, right? And you're taking care of hundreds of people. I mean, look, a lot of folks go broke. MC Hammer went broke, right? You guys might be too young to remember that. Ja Rule went broke. A lot of folks go broke. 50 Cent filed for bankruptcy. He said he wasn't really broke, but this stuff happens, you know? So pray for these rappers, yo. Pray for these rappers. Be praying for Lil Wayne. I'll probably write him some more letters. But I ultimately hope that this man changes his mind about this stuff, because this stuff is sad. Like, this stuff is really sad. And what it is more importantly, see, the Lil Waynes then influenced the Bunks to then wild out and be more debaucherous and do bigger stunts to get noticed and for clout. And it just becomes a perpetual cycle, right? It just becomes a perpetual cycle. And so even though we think that things are really bad, there is hope when we have platforms like TikTok and there's Christian influencers thriving on TikTok. When we have platforms like YouTube and there's Christian influencers thriving on YouTube, which is why you should give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. It's actually, I feel like things are getting better, in my opinion. I feel like things are getting better. I think things are progressing. I feel like there's more hope and there's more light than there was 10 years ago, in my opinion, right? So those are some of my thoughts, man. I really do want to hear from you guys, and what do you guys think about this?
Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.
I saw my mama smile through the silhouette. Sunshine and all. But she don't know that I still feel like we ain't made it yet. No, I ain't lying at all. I remember walking back from grocery stores and she would carry me sore. Muscles didn't mean a thing, we just had to see this thing through. And now she got bad hips and needs to replaced. I wonder if I